I was parked in my cherry red convertible outside the Starbucks on Cedar Ridge Drive, engine idling, top down. I was enjoying the 72 degrees breeze while Boston's More Than a Feeling played softly through the speakers. That's when something flickered in my peripheral vision. Before I could fully turn my head, Brenda Kensington, our HOA president, suddenly vaulted over my passenger door like some suburban action hero and landed in my leather seat with the confidence of someone who had just conquered a kingdom. "Drive me to the community center immediately," she barked, pointing forward like a field commander directing troops. My electric scooter battery is dead, and my husband took our Tesla to a golf tournament. I have an emergency board meeting in 12 minutes about unauthorized garden gnome placements. Then she snapped her fingers at me twice, sharp cracks cutting through the quiet morning. I just stared at her for a solid 5 seconds. My vanilla latte paused halfway to my mouth. "Brenda," I said slowly, trying to process what I was seeing. "You literally just jumped into my car without permission. That's not how anything works." She adjusted her oversized sunglasses and smoothed her blazer. She always wore the one with HOA President embroidered in gold thread, like she was adjusting royal regalia. As the duly elected president of Cedar Ridge Estates for the past 7 years, she sniffed like she was correcting a child's math homework. "I have executive transit privileges during community emergencies, as stated in subsection 47B of our neighborhood covenant. Now drive. We are wasting valuable enforcement time." I carefully placed my coffee in the cup holder and pulled out my phone. When the 911 operator answered, she sounded like she was having a peaceful morning, until I explained that my HOA president had commandeered my vehicle and refused to leave. 20 minutes later, Brenda sat in handcuffs trying to explain executive transit privileges to Officer Daniels, who looked like he was struggling not to laugh while reading her rights. But let me step back for a moment and explain how I ended up with the neighborhood's most infamous HOA president being arrested in my passenger seat. My name is Arthur Mitchell. I'm a 41-year-old software developer working from home. I moved to Cedar Ridge Estates 3 years ago, drawn by the mature oaks, pristine green spaces, and what the realtor called a vibrant community atmosphere. What she didn't mention was that vibrant meant micromanaged by Brenda Kensington with near total intensity. Brenda, 53 years old, 5 feet 2 inches, always in sensible pumps, carried a clipboard everywhere like it was ceremonial staff. She'd been HOA president since 2017, mostly because anyone who considered challenging her suddenly received 17 violation notices within a week. She once fined the Johnsons $800 because their trash bins were visible for 37 minutes after pickup hours. She measured grass height with a ruler every Tuesday and kept a color-coded spreadsheet of every resident's violations going back a decade. My issues with Brenda started harmlessly about 6 months ago when I decided to repaint my front door. I chose a deep navy blue that looked sharp against my gray siding. The paint had barely dried when Brenda appeared on my porch with a look that could curdle cream. "Mr. Mitchell," she announced like she was delivering a sentence. "Navy blue is not on the approved exterior color palette, as stated in Section 12, subsection C. You have 72 hours to repaint it into one of the 17 approved shades or face daily fines of $100. I tried reasoning with her, even showing that my navy was nearly identical to colonial blue. But Brenda pulled an actual spectrometer from her purse. Yes, a spectrometer, and proved it was 3 shades off. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who desperately needed a hobby or therapy, probably both. I repainted the door. But after that, Brenda made it her personal mission to patrol my property like a hawk hunting prey. My mailbox, she claimed, was 2 degrees off perpendicular. My driveway had an oil stain the size of coin and therefore violated aesthetic standards. She even tried to cite me for excessive butterfly attraction because my lavender bushes created an unregulated pollinator zone. Things escalated 2 weeks before the convertible incident. Brenda sent a neighborhood-wide email announcing a mandatory Saturday seminar on hedge trimming techniques. The message was in all caps, filled with red exclamation marks, and threatened violations for anyone who didn't attend. I politely replied that I had a prior commitment, which was really just sleeping past 8 a.m. for once. Brenda was not amused. She showed up at my door at 6:30 that Saturday with a portable speaker blasting the Cedar Ridge Estate's official anthem, which apparently existed. She refused to stop until I answered the door. Half asleep in pajamas, I was greeted with a 150-page hedge maintenance manual shoved into my hands and told my absence was now in my permanent file. I didn't even have hedges. From there, things spiraled. Monday brought a violation for automotive flamboyance because my convertible was too red. Tuesday brought another notice for top-down infractions, claiming my open roof caused airflow disruption. By Wednesday, she invented vehicular nonconformity and tried fining me $300. I started saving every notice in a folder, partly for court, but mostly because they were so absurd they felt unreal. My favorite was a citation for nocturnal luminosity excess, issued after she measured my porch light at 10 p.m., the day before the convertible incident. Another mass email arrived. This time she invoked something called Emergency Protocol 7, a rule no one had ever heard of. According to her, it granted HOA board members emergency powers during a community aesthetic crisis. The crisis? The Garcia family had planted pink roses instead of red ones, supposedly disrupting neighborhood harmony. Which brings us back to that Thursday morning at Starbucks, when Brenda decided my convertible would be her personal taxi service. After she climbed in and issued her demand, I stayed surprisingly calm. While she rambled about her authority, I casually pulled out my phone and dialed 911. She didn't even notice until I was already speaking. "Hello," I said politely as Brenda's face shifted toward a deep shade of purple. "I'd like to report a trespassing and attempted vehicle theft at the Starbucks on Cedar Ridge Drive. The suspect is inside my car and refusing to exit. She's about 5 feet 2 inches, gray hair and a bob, wearing a navy blazer embroidered with HOA President." "Yes, I'll stay on the line." Brenda let out a sharp, strangled shriek. "You cannot call the police on me. I am a duly elected official conducting HOA business." She lunged for my phone, but I kept it out of reach. "This is mutiny. This is insurrection. I'll have you expelled from Cedar Ridge Estates," she screamed. "Ma'am," I said calmly, still on the call, "the suspect is now attempting to grab my phone and is trying to assault me. Please send officers immediately." "Yes, I feel threatened." "No, she does appear armed, unless you count a clipboard." 2 police cruisers arrived within 8 minutes, which had to be some kind of record. Officers Daniels and Ramirez approached cautiously, the kind of caution usually reserved for actual dangerous criminals, far more than necessary for someone whose greatest weapon was her ability to recite HOA codes from memory. Officer Daniels, a tall man with kind eyes and an 80s-style mustache, leaned toward my door. "Good morning, sir," he said professionally. "You reported someone trespassing your vehicle?" I nodded and gestured toward Brenda, who sat stiffly, fuming in place, arms crossed. She glared at everything within a 50-foot radius like the universe itself had personally insulted her. Daniels moved around the passenger side. "Ma'am, I need you to exit the vehicle," he said firmly. Brenda straightened her blazer and lifted her chin as if preparing to deliver a royal decree. "Officer," she began in the same tone she usually reserved for reprimanding homeowners about trash placement, "I am the president of the Cedar Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, and under subsection 47B of our community guidelines, I have full authority to requisition resident vehicles during declared emergencies." She reached into her purse and produced a laminated card, waving it like official identification. "I have jurisdiction here." Officer Ramirez, who looked barely out of high school but was definitely in his mid-20s, turned slightly away to hide a grin. Officer Daniels, to his credit, kept a straight face. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "that's not how the law works. HOA rules do not override state or federal law. Exit the vehicle now, or you'll be placed under arrest for trespassing." Brenda clutched her clipboard tightly to her chest like it was a shield. "This is a conspiracy," she declared loudly, making sure the growing crowd could hear every word. "Mr. Mitchell has been conducting an ongoing campaign of violations against community standards, and now he's weaponizing law enforcement against legitimate HOA activity." She turned toward the bystanders. "You all know me. I've maintained property values here for 7 years. Ma'am, Officer Daniels repeated with almost saint-like patience, "Last warning. Exit voluntarily, or we will remove you and place you under arrest." Brenda responded by clicking her seatbelt back into place and gripping the door handle with both hands. Daniels sighed slightly. "Very well, ma'am. You are under arrest for criminal trespassing and attempted unauthorized use of a motor vehicle." What followed was the most absurdly formal arrest I had ever witnessed. Brenda refused to unbuckle, forcing Officer Ramirez to carefully reach across her while she continued shouting about HOA sovereignty, which, for the record, is not a real legal concept. Once they finally pulled her out of my car, she demanded the officers allow her to file a formal complaint with the HOA board before being taken to jail. Daniels calmly informed her she would have plenty of time for complaints at the station. As they cuffed her, Brenda twisted back toward the crowd, shouting, "Contact Vice President Reynolds. Activate Emergency Protocol 7. Document this illegal detention. Check subsection 47B. Several people were already filming, though not in her defense. The video hit the neighborhood social media page within hours, titled, "HOA President Attempts Grand Theft Auto. Gets Arrested Instead." It exploded past 300 comments in the first hour. Turns out I wasn't the only one who had suffered under Brenda's rule. Residents began sharing their own ridiculous fines and made-up violations. Tom Morrison said he was fined for aggressive lawn maintenance because his grass was too green. Sarah Kim posted a citation for unauthorized squirrel feeding after squirrels visited her bird feeder. The Hendersons admitted they were fined for excessive holiday cheer after leaving Christmas lights up until January 2nd, apparently 2 days beyond the acceptable festive window. The emergency HOA board meeting Brenda had rushed off to still happened, just with a very different agenda. Vice President Reynolds, a mild-mannered accountant who only took the role because no one else would, called the meeting to order in her absence. First item, her immediate suspension pending criminal investigation. The vote was unanimous, even from members who had been too intimidated to oppose her before. I was invited to testify at a special hearing the following week. I arrived with my carefully organized folder of absurd violations, the automotive flamboyance citation, the nocturnal luminosity excess notice, and more. I also presented doorbell footage of Brenda measuring my lawn with a ruler at 6 a.m. on multiple mornings. The board was horrified to discover Emergency Protocol 7 and her so-called transit privileges, neither of which existed in any official HOA document. The criminal case unfolded over the next 2 months. Brenda hired an expensive attorney who argued she had implied consent to use my vehicle based on community norms. The prosecutor, Jennifer Park, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney, made it simple, breaking and entering a vehicle, which is exactly what it was. Brenda's own emails and statements about executive transit privileges became key evidence of intent. Worse details soon surfaced. She had embezzled HOA funds to purchase enforcement gadgets, including her spectrometer. She fabricated violations to generate revenue and kept portions of the fines. She even hired a private investigator using HOA money to track residents she suspected of minor infractions, explaining how she always knew when trash cans were left out for 30 extra seconds. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Brenda was found guilty of criminal trespassing, attempted unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, and misappropriation of HOA funds. The judge called it the most absurd case of HOA overreach he had seen in 30 years and sentenced her to 6 months in jail, suspended, time served, and 2 years probation. She was ordered to pay $25,000 restitution to the HOA and $5,000 to me for harassment. But the consequences didn't stop there. Brenda was permanently banned from serving on any HOA board in the state. She was ordered to complete 100 hours of community service assisting people she had previously fined, along with a 12-week course on boundaries and leadership. Focused, the judge said, on the difference between community service and tyranny. Her professional life collapsed next. She worked as an office manager at a real estate firm, and after her arrest went public, she was immediately fired due to reputational damage and ethical concerns. Her real estate license was suspended pending review, effectively ending her career in property management. The final HOA meeting to formally remove her drew a packed crowd. Vice President Reynolds read the resolution stripping her position and banning her from meetings for 5 years. When he finished, Brenda stood from the back row, her face twisted in disbelief. "You can't do this," she cried. "I've spent 7 years maintaining standards here. Without me, property values will collapse. There will be chaos, anarchy, pink roses everywhere." Security escorted her out as she kept shouting about aesthetic collapse. When the door closed behind her, the room erupted in applause. Someone brought a cake that read freedom from tyranny in green frosting. The Garcia family handed out pink roses like symbols of liberation. Brenda's financial situation unraveled quickly. Restitution wiped out most of her savings, and legal fees drained another $30,000. She sold her Lexus and bought a used Honda Civic. The final humiliation came when she received a violation notice from the new HOA board for leaving her trash cans out past pickup time, a rule she herself had created. The fine was $50. She paid it like everyone else. The last time I saw Brenda was 6 months after her conviction at the grocery store. She was working as a cashier, her HOA president blazer replaced by a polyester uniform and name tag. When she saw me in line, her expression shifted from anger to embarrassment to resignation. She rang up my groceries in silence until the final obligatory question. "Did you find everything you needed today?" I nodded, paid, and walked away. As I left, I heard her supervisor reminding her to smile more. The woman who once ruled the neighborhood with an iron fist was now being coached by a 20-year-old shift manager. Her empire citations and violation notices had been reduced to scanning barcodes for $8.50.